partner's perfectly positioned to be your worst enemy or your best friend. They will very quickly reflect your traumas back at you. A healthy relationship has healthy sex. And if we're not having healthy sex, we don't have a healthy relationship. By having all of our needs met, we can show up healthy in our relationship. The more unmet needs, the less healthy we show up. Being vulnerable is a necessity as a man. We need to be able to communicate. And if you can't clearly communicate your emotions and simply say, I feel X and I don't appreciate this, then as a man, you're incomplete and you're not showing up to the relationship in a healthy way. She isn't able to put her feminine energy behind something and contribute. She's left to some degree unable to give love. Women often need a reason to cheat, men just need a location. And the reason men don't cheat isn't based on whether we love our partner or not, it's just based on the fact that
Clayton, welcome to the Better Project podcast. I'm keen for this, man, and we've been having a chat off camera. And coming in today's podcast, with the work that you do around relationships, I was like, this is going to be a great opportunity for me just to, in a way, be vulnerable and share what I'm experiencing. And it's going to be like a bit of a therapy session, I feel. But I also want to dive into your story. But I appreciate you making the trip. Was it from Wollongong, you said?
Yeah, down closer to Jervis Bay. But
yeah, okay.
Yeah, Wollongong. It's more distance to travel, bro.
No, what was it? Hour and a bit?
2 hours.
2 hours?
Yeah.
Fucking, I respect anyone that is willing to travel to give their time to add value. So I really appreciate that, man.
I appreciate you having me, man. I really, really appreciate being here. And if it turns into some form of therapy, brilliant. I think it'll be beneficial for not only both of us, but anyone watching as well.
Now, for people who may not know you and they've may have recently come across your page, or after this they're going to jump on your page and they see all the relationship stuff, I want to give them a bit of context on like who is Clayton, and more so throughout our upbringing there's a lot of pivotal moments that really shape us into who we are today. So what are some of those moments that you feel shape the man that sits in front of us?
Starting heavy.
I like to go deep, bro.
Yeah, deep quick. We're not fluffing about. So who I am now is I'm a coach and I focus on working with men to help improve their relationships. I've recently started taking on women because I've had a lot of women reach out after watching the work that I do with men and the advice that I offer them, and they've turned around and said, "Oh, like he gets it and he understands me as a woman. How can I change to be better for my men, or how can I get him to change?" So ironically, I've started working with women, but my predominant focus is on men and helping them heal their relationship. It's the biggest investment of their life. And what's different about what I do is I don't help them fix the relationship so much as I help them fix themselves, because I think the relationship is the wrong thing to focus on. We need to focus on the two parts that come to the relationship. So I've found by fixing the man, you can fix the relationship. And there's a saying that I love, that it's that a woman won't follow or a man won't lead. So if a man leads by example in a relationship, his woman will eventually drop the guards and the walls and the masculine energy and lean into a feminine and follow in a loving way. And then the relationship tends to work. To the second part of your question, how do they get here? And I guess what pivotal parts shaped me to get where I am today? There's a lot I could touch on, so feel free to help.
Yeah, I'll guide it.
Do you want to start childhood?
Yeah, like what was your upbringing like? Were you raised a single mum?
I was raised by a single mum who was in and out of a lot of relationships with drug dealers, clinically diagnosed psychopaths, gang members, abusive men, like emotionally, spiritually, physically. I grew up in the world's #1 funded government housing commission in the state, I think you would call it. So it was Claymore.
Yep.
So I think the rate there, it's like high 80s, low 90% of the homes in that area are all owned by the government, their housing commission. I grew up there with a pretty rough upbringing. And then from there I went to Campbelltown, where it was still quite rough. There was a lot of violence there. That's where the drug dealers stepped into the picture. The gang members, the diagnosed psychopath as well, who thought bugs were crawling through the ceiling often and would force us under the beds to hide at the age of 6, 7, 8. I went through an array of things, and I used to say my childhood upbringing wasn't that bad. And look, compared to others, and I truly and honestly mean this, it wasn't that bad, but it still was bad. It was horrific. And it wasn't until someone said to me one day, I was talking to someone, and it was another coach, and I said, my childhood upbringing wasn't that bad. He's like, from what you've showed me and told me so far, there's a few things that are pretty detrimental and pivotal, and they would have shaped how you see the world, your values, your beliefs, and it's all pretty bad. I was like, no, it's not really. And he said, what if your son Rome had to go through what you did, and had to experience the things you did to your kid? And it was at that point that I went, fuck, and I realized it was bad. It's not as bad as what some girls have gone through that I've spoken to, and a lot of other men, but to provide some context, what I went through was there was a lot of physical abuse. The psychopath, Jason was his name, he made my mother at one point beat the shit out of me in my room, in the corner of my room, on my bed. And it was all because his child that he brought over had train track marks in his arm because we were playing with train tracks. And he assumed that I put the marks on his arm when we were just laying on it, playing on him. So I had them all over me, his kid had them all over him. And for him to be happy and satisfied with the situation, he wanted my mum to beat me until I felt pain and cried. And it was only then that he let her stop. So I went through things like that. I seen my mum get beaten up on a veranda. I don't know how old I was somewhere between 6 and 8. I went and grabbed a knife out of the kitchen, and at the screen door where they were just in front of it, in the process of opening it up to walk out, she yelled at me to stop because she seen me there with the knife, and yelled at me to go back to my room. And I struggled as a young boy knowing that I had to be the man in the house, which I was told to do many times with a family, but also to listen to mum. And at a very young age, I had people pleaser tendencies to please my mum because I was told I had to make her life easy and not be a hassle. So my needs had to get put to the back of the picture, and hers were the priority. And so things like that really fucked with me and made me conflicted because I was like, I need to protect mum, but she's telling me not to. And I listened, I went to the room, I put the knife back, but I witnessed things like that, as well as a lot of abuse towards my younger brother from the drug dealers and alcoholics, and myself as well. And I guess that was pretty pivotal in shaping who I was a while ago, and then who I am now as well, because that very much led into me developing a lot of traits that pedestalized women. Women could do no wrong because mum was perfect, and I had to protect mum all the time, and there was always these arsehole men that were the problem. And there was a lot of unhealthy men. In fact, there was no healthy masculine male figures in my life growing up. There was none. Even family provided pretty unhealthy models on how to be, how to act. And when we're growing up, we do one of two things when we see things. We either accept or reject the behavior. Thankfully, I rejected a lot of it, but that didn't go without creating a lot of traumas and belief systems that lay dormant in me until later on in life. And it was when I started forming relationships of my own with women that I realized how much, I guess, I would sacrifice of myself in order to make them happy, without realizing I had this covert contract of thinking that if I just give them what they need, that would give me what I need. And I guess it wasn't until later in life, after an 8-year relationship and destroying my own values, my self-worth, my identity, to try and give to a woman that was never giving enough back and didn't want to give enough back. It wasn't until that point that I broke myself, essentially, and realized there was something fundamentally wrong with how I was showing up and why I was tolerating such intolerable behavior from someone that was meant to be the love of my life and was the mother of my child. And eventually I left. I walked away from that relationship, which was still to this day the hardest thing I ever done, because I broke up a family unit, much like I grew up in, and I seen the effects it had on me and my brother and my mum. And not only that, this woman, when I met her, had a 2-year-old daughter that I raised as my own. So not only was I walking away from her, I was walking away from that and being just another father figure in her world. And it felt like shit. But we can talk more on this. The faith side of things, God stepped in and reassured me it was the right thing to do. And I was getting a lot of signs, if you would, that I needed to leave. And when I did and pulled the trigger, it was, as I said, the hardest thing I've ever done, but very quickly it became obvious that it was the right thing to do. And in that process, I started discovering the reality of who I was and why I was showing up the way I was, and how I was responsible for the way the relationship ended up the way it did. It's not to give her a free pass by any means. She was responsible for a lot. But I realized my inability to put boundaries in place and how I would tolerate things that you shouldn't. And as a result, I deteriorated, and then the behavior got worse and supported. And that's what began my journey to get where I am now, and understanding relationships and women and how things work and why a relationship lasts long term and is happy and fulfilling versus one that, like most, just don't stand the test of time. And even the ones that do, 90% of relationships aren't fulfilling. I figured all that out, and as a result, not by design or not by intention, but I started helping people. I had a coaching background from my young 20s, and I just found myself by default helping people with that coaching background and knowledge that I had. And one thing led to another, and I eventually got to the point where I thought I should actually share this advice online because it genuinely changed my life, and I had a really healthy relationship with women now, and I knew other people needed the advice too. So I started offering it, and that's what led me to where I am today, helping men create fulfilling, long-lasting relationships like I have now as well, and having healthy, happy kids and a family unit that doesn't get affected or deterred by environmental conditions around them.
That's awesome, man. And it just goes to show, I say this all the time, like our purpose in life usually stems from pain points. And a big pain point for you was the not healthy dynamic of your upbringing and having different men in and out of your life, not having a strong role model. What's your relationship like with your mum? I'm curious. Do you have a strong relationship with her? Yeah.
I don't have a bad relationship, but I certainly don't have a good one.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not that it's bad. It's just not what I would like it to be. I can give you the short version and the long version if you want it. The short version is my mum had me at 16.
Okay.
And she was an incredible mother given the conditions and circumstances she had. There was a lot done wrong, but there was also a lot done right. And I think it's Tony Robbins who said, if you're going to blame the parents for the bad, you're going to blame them for the good too. So she's done a lot right, and I'm so grateful for it. But there was a lot of neglect. My health, my overall well-being, other things that just, as a mother, I could never tolerate the mother of my child not doing the things for our son that my mother never done for me. And it took me a while to forgive her, because I got to a point when I started my journey on personal development in my young 20s that I started to realize these issues. And I would approach my mother with a very firm, direct question or approach to issues. I would say, this is a problem, let's address it, let's deal with it. This is the truth, accept it as it is, don't hide from it. And obviously, because of her trauma and all the stories that she told herself, if she accepted the truth, it meant that she was a bad mother, or she was a bad person. And I was a bit naive to that at the time. I just wanted honesty and acceptance and communication, which I didn't get. And as a result, I walked away, and I left it on her to close the distance in the relationship and come to me, which didn't happen for years. And it eventually got to a point where, after a bunch of healing work I did on myself with hypnotherapists and coaches and psychedelics as well, I fully forgave her for the upbringing that we had, and I realized that it was a blessing and that I am the way I am now because of her. And I realized that when I asked myself if I would change who I am now, and I genuinely got afraid of wanting to be any different other than the way I am. I obviously want to grow and improve, but I would be afraid of who I'd become if I took certain pieces of my past away. So I actually want to keep it. So when I had that mentality shift, I was thankful to my mum. I wanted to reassure her that she was a good mum. She'd done the best she could with what she had, and that I wanted her to be more involved in my son's life, because she wasn't up until this point. And it was after that forgiveness period and having that conversation with her that I realized my mum still is who she is. She's so late in her life now. She's in her 40s, and that's young, don't get me wrong, but she's had a hard life, a very unhealthy life. So she's not a healthy, young, vibrant 40-year-old. She's an older lady who's had a very hard life, and it's difficult to want to be as involved as I can with my mum whilst building 2 businesses, having a son, a new relationship that I want to pour into, as well as having my purpose and my mission, which is to do what I'm doing now. So when I see her, it's great. We hug, we kiss, I see how she's doing. And mum's cheering me on from the sideline. It's brilliant. Like, we have a healthy relationship. It's just, is it what it could be? No. Could it be better? It would take a lot of work. And I came to peace with the reality that I don't necessarily have the time and energy to put into that, because the energy that I pour into trying to make that work would take away from me making things as good as they can be with my son now, and helping other people do the same with their family. I think it would be selfish of me to try and make that incrementally better with the enormous amount of effort it would take versus putting that effort somewhere else where I'd get exponentially more return on it.
Yeah.
So it's healthy, but it's not the world's best mother-son relationship. It's not bad. It's just not what it could be.
Yeah, but in saying that, it's a beautiful place when you can sit there and in a way have empathy and gratitude towards your parents, because I'm sure there was a period of your life where you may have had resent and anger towards your upbringing. For me personally, I did towards my dad until I started doing the inner work. And the beauty of that is you have all this like built up tension and negative energy in you, and through me doing the inner work, and it was actually a really deep breath work that unlocked all this for me, it really allowed me to release that resent and that anger and just fill it with love, empathy, gratitude. And a big shift for me was when I had my daughter, because it actually allows you to understand, like, parents are not perfect and they're just humans at the end of the day, and they're doing the best with the tools that they had. Your mum probably didn't have the best tools or the best guidance. My dad didn't either. And I can see that now being a dad myself. It's tough, man. It's hard being a parent. So looking at it through that lens, it gives you a better understanding and just so much more love and gratitude. And it's not so much saying what you did was right or wrong or accepting it, but it's like accepting it within yourself of, this is what's happened. This is what's made me into who I am today. And I do not regret it, because I wouldn't be in this studio. I wouldn't be doing the things that I do now, because I look back, and a big thing for me was I lacked the confidence. I struggled with anxiety because of things that were said to me from a young age. And when things are said over and over again, you start to believe it. Now, one of my core values is connection and communication. I wouldn't be doing this podcast or anything that I do if I didn't go through that in my upbringing. So it's really important to understand that what happens to us from a young age, don't always look at it as a negative. It may feel shit. You may still be dealing with the traumas, if you want to use trauma. It's a really loosely thrown around word these days. Everyone has traumas. We're all fucked up in some shape or form. But yeah, just understanding it all happens for a reason. Just be grateful for it.
I love that, because we do have traumas. I use the word trauma to keep it simple, and we are all traumatized to the degree that we refuse to accept our past. If you wouldn't change who you are now, then you can't be pissed off at your past. If you're happy with who you are, or you wouldn't want to change who you are now, you've got to become at peace with your past, because your past has made you who you are now. If you're not at peace with your past, it means there's a trauma there. There's something trapped within you that shouldn't be there. So trauma, an unhealed wound, an unresolved wound, whatever you will, whatever it is, it's something that's holding you back. Instead, agree that that's present in your body is the same degree that's going to impact the rest of your life. It impacts how you show up in a relationship, your career, your finances, your spiritual life. It just fucking ruins your life and limits you immensely. And it's the cause of a lot of pain and torment in people's relationships as well. They enter a relationship thinking they're fine and they're all good. But as I say, a lot of people, your partner's perfectly positioned to be your worst enemy or your best friend. They will very quickly reflect your traumas back at you once the honeymoon period is over, and you don't see this loving, beautiful partner anymore. You see this enemy almost sometimes, or someone that wants to piss you off. And it's not that they are doing anything wrong and they're a bad person. It's just they're reflecting back at you your unconscious traumas or unconscious traits that you're unaware you're doing. And we typically get an outcome or a result back from them that we don't like. And instead of blaming the problem, if we attack the root cause of it and look where it comes from, we'll see it's something we're typically doing. And it all comes back essentially to our past. It comes back to how we're raised. It comes back to what we chose to do as a kid, whether we accept it or not, whether we are at peace with it or not. Essentially, if we come full circle and we end up at peace with our past and who we are now, we don't have trauma, and then we end up showing up happier, healthier, and we have better lives. It's an important thing to focus on, I think, and it's probably unaddressed in a lot of us.
I want to go back to, you mentioned before around the hard decision of leaving that relationship where you had your son, because there's a lot of relationships where the parents will stay together for the sake of the child. And it's a tough one, because my relationship's not great. Like it's rocky. We've been together for 8 years. We have a 2.5-year-old, and it's a struggle when all your energy goes to your child and me building a business and everything like that. And you have these, I think it's normal to have these thoughts of, what if, what if I was single? What if I was in a different relationship or all these other things?
100%, yeah.
For you, how did you make that decision? Especially when you have a child and you're like, oh, do you trust in your partner to be able to be on the same page in raising your child, or like, do you struggle with that? Because I would struggle.
Yep. It depends on, there's a lot of ways I can take this. For me, the foundation of the relationship was wrong to begin with. So with my relationship, I stuck around probably 2 or 3 years longer than what I should have. And it was because I wanted to keep the family together. I had a son, I had a stepdaughter that I'd taken on as my own, and I'd raised her. And it was good, it was great. We had really beautiful moments, but we also had, like, when it was bad, it was fucking bad. Like one bad event in the relationship would outdo weeks and possibly months of good, because it would be so intense and prolonged so long. And the process of resolving it was clunky and unhealthy, and she didn't want to meet me in the middle and communicate. I would first off say the relationship has to have the right foundation, and how a relationship is meant to go is man, woman, child. And above the man is meant to be their purpose or their spiritual belief system. So say God, to keep it simple. I'd like to use purpose because as men, we need something to serve greater than us. We need a purpose to move towards, a North Star, I normally say. And we need to make our decisions based on that North Star. So that needs to guide us. And one of the issues, a lot of men end up in this situation because it's common where you're at. Like most men are in relationships, and after a long enough period of time, it gets like the intimacy isn't as easy. It's like everything dries down. Like having sex now versus in the beginning of a relationship, every relationship it dies down. So a lot of our needs get met to a lesser degree. It's harder to spend more time together because we've got more demands on us, and you now throw a kid in the mix. Of course it's going to be harder. And now imagine if you have the structure of things wrong as well. It's designed to work against you. And inevitably, over a long enough period of time, when you're trying to focus on doing the right thing in the business, you're then not spending enough time with her. And then when you are spending it with her, it's usually arguing. And then the kids wanting needs, it just becomes fucking hard. And that's where I was at. I didn't have a North Star to move towards. And I didn't fuel that first, which as a result would have kept my cup full so that I had more than enough to give to my partner. What I'd done was I prioritized my partner. And by doing that, I poured into her, but I didn't have anything pouring into me. Because a man's mission will pour into us. Pursuing what we want and being better pours into us. So I would give and give and give to this partner that would take and take and take. And I would end up with nothing left to give. And then because she wasn't pouring into me and using her feminine energy to refuel me and propel me forward, because the masculine energy is more directive and pursuing, and the feminine energy is much more powerful and can really drive that energy when it's directed right. Because we had that wrong, and also the kid became somewhat of a priority as well with the kids, it was a recipe for disaster. And because she had a lot of traumas and unmet needs, as most people would coming into a relationship, they got amplified, and it just got to a point where I couldn't do things right for her, I couldn't do things right for the kids. I was empty. I didn't even know who I was anymore because I kept compromising my values because I had no North Star to base decisions off. I was instead making my decisions based off feelings and emotions and her needs, which would be fleeting and change all the time, as most women do. And it would just end up a mess. So even when I'd done things right, it was to appease her needs, which would then change, or she wouldn't feel really fulfilled because they were surface level needs, not core fundamental needs. Like her need for safety and variety wasn't satisfied. And it doesn't matter what woman it is in the world, if they don't have a healthy balance of safety in the relationship or variety, they won't love you. And then therefore you won't get your cup filled by them. And then as a result, you end up empty because, again, if you don't have your mission filling your cup up, you're not getting filled up there, you're not getting filled up from your partner, you just end up empty. So the less and less you show up and the less you give to her, the less she gives you, and you're just in this downward spiral in the relationship.
You mentioned, I understand the safety part, you mentioned variety. Is that more so like date nights and doing different things all the time instead of just the same routine over and over again?
Yeah, it's a core human need. So every human has the need for variety. Tony Robbins talks about the 6 human needs. And women, I go one further with it. So there's human needs that need to be satisfied first, and then there's core feminine and masculine needs. So a woman has this very inherent innate need for variety or fun or spontaneity. And most men over time provide a hell of a lot of security and certainty, but too much certainty kills us. We end up bored, we end up too confident in what's going to happen, and women just end up bored. They have this other need that needs to be filled, and the thing is, it'll always be met in some way, shape, or form. We have these 6 human needs, and we must meet them, and if we don't meet them in healthy ways, we'll inevitably meet them in unhealthy ways. So a woman will start looking for variety if they don't get it from their man, in the ways of arguments, or in the ways of creating some sort of a deviation from the certain plain old boring path they have in front of them. And sometimes it can look like cheating. It looks like infidelity, because on top of a lack of variety, which also usually means a lack of fun in the relationship, you end up with this hole in the relationship. It's this wall. I talk about all relationships are meant to have a barrier around them. It's the man's responsibility to put the barrier up and set expectations and standards. And if we don't do that, outside forces can get in and deteriorate the relationship. It can affect it in the family unit. So we need to have these walls up, and one of those walls is variety. We need to provide that. And if that's taken down, it's very easy in this day and age and world for a woman to look at another man and then start, flirting, and then it's so easy in the moment to be able to go, oh wow, if they're not, women of value and virtue, to find themselves cheating or looking for that fun variety outside of you.
That's interesting, because like for me, I'm in a period of life where like I have my North Star and I'm focused on building this empire, this business. Yet I'm working on creating that safety. And financial, big thing for these days is the financial aspect of that. That's a big point of safety.
Yeah.
Though, how do you balance, focusing on building that safety, building the business, but then still giving that variety and that quality time to your partner? Because I want to be vulnerable with this. I want to share, like, I had a conversation with my partner the other week, and she goes, I feel alone in this house. Because I'm just so focused. I'm working, Daniel would know I'm up to like 11, 12 o'clock at night editing, working on the business, and I'm not spending quality time with her. And I've noticed like she's going out more with her friends and doing all these different things and not wanting to be home. And then that hurts me because I feel like she doesn't want to spend time with me. And then we just come in this argument back and forth of, you don't love me, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do we shift that or fix that dynamic there?
I think it's very telling. She said, I feel alone in this house. One of the ways women love us is through serving us. And a lot of women have an unhealthy relationship with the word serve. Women are meant to serve their men as men are meant to serve their women. It's not a one-way thing, it's reciprocal. And to the degree that we don't allow our woman to serve us and contribute to our mission, which is our North Star, which a lot of men don't have, but you have. So to the degree that she's unable to help you on your mission and move forward is the same degree that she's going to feel distance. It's a core feminine need to contribute. So there's safety, there's variety, there's significance, and there's contribution. If she's unable to contribute to her man's purpose, and remember the hierarchy, kid, mum, or partner, then you, the man. If she isn't able to put her feminine energy behind something and contribute, she's left to some degree unable to give love. And if we can't give love, we can't receive it either. So you've essentially throttled her ability there in one way. So I would find a way to make it possible for her to serve you more. And sometimes it can be challenging because we go into a relationship where, as you say, there's already this tension and you don't love me, you don't love me, and you're going to go in and ask for more now. It seems like a challenge and a difficulty. So it's about getting back, peeling everything back first and allowing her to contribute to you. But before that, and before you ever expect anything, we've got to give it. Especially as men in relationships, I always say if you're needing something from your partner, there's also something you're not giving. So I would figure out what needs of hers aren't being met. And I'd say it's pretty obvious. You've got to look at the core fundamental needs. Thankfully, and I'll share this with you afterwards, I've got a template of what they are. So one of them is significance, safety, and variety. And if you meet 3 core needs or more, you'll have someone that loves you. They'll worship the ground you walk on. 2 or less, they'll love you, and it's usually a hot and cold relationship. 3 or more is where you need to be. Ideally, the more the better. It's kind of like a table. If you have a table with 3 legs, this table here, it would be able to balance. It would be a bit shaky, and it wouldn't take much for someone to come bump it and knock everything off. But you chuck that 4th leg on there and it's stable now. It's not going anywhere. You chuck 5 and 6 and 7 legs on it, it's way sturdier. So the more points of contact and the more values and needs met within a relationship, the easier it is, And you can literally show up and do fuck all as a man in a relationship, but if you've met the core needs, they will love and worship the ground you walk on. And it's why sometimes you can see relationships where there's an asshole of a guy and a very feminine, loving woman, and you think, why is she with him? It's because he probably provides enough core needs, but not personal ones. And because we provide and fulfill core needs, they're way more addictive. They actually cause us to release like oxytocin and serotonin in our system, and they make us love the person. They actually make us feel like we're addicted to them. So to go back to your scenario with your relationship, how you balance that isn't sacrificing the hours to work, like most people would say. Like, you have a mission and you need to work towards that, and she needs to support that. But she needs the support first to be able to give something to you. So she has a cup here that needs filling up. And the best way you can do that is by figuring out what her personal needs are. We can talk about her core needs, which is going to be providing some form of safety. And I might touch on the safety actually. And it's probably not what you think. Safety isn't being rich. Mm-hmm. It's not just knowing that there's a roof over your head and you've got enough money for good food to provide the family and to be able to go on vacation once or twice a year. Safety is more about the absence of aggression. Safety is more about the absence of the opposite of it, uncertainty and danger. So to provide real safety and fulfill that need in a woman, she needs consistency. And that's a core masculinity. We need to be consistent. So if she knows how we're going to behave based on a given set of circumstances, that provides safety and security for her. If she doesn't know how we're going to react, if, say, she does something wrong with the value of ours and she crosses a line, she goes, fuck, I've now got to be honest and vulnerable here and tell him what I've done. If she doesn't know how we're going to respond, how do you think that makes them feel? It feels dangerous to come to you. So all of a sudden her partner that's meant to be a loving, giving, nurturing partner feels like a dangerous space. There's the threat of you leaving. So we have all these threats that work against them wanting to come to you in the first place. Whereas if she knows that there's a consistent track record of you saying, oh, this sounds like it's heavy, let me breathe and just get my headspace right. That way I can be prepared for this conversation to show up for you and not get triggered. And I can instead be sturdy and remain calm in the emotional storm that's about to ensue. Then she'll feel much more safe and comfortable coming to you about things, and she'll be vulnerable. And when you get the truth from her, which most men don't get the truth from women, we're often left going, what the fuck do they mean? They say this, but they do that. It's because they're not safe. They don't have certainty in how you're going to react or how that they can come to you or that you're able to handle it. So if we provide that, we'll then get the truth and proper communication from them. And with understanding comes empathy. We all of a sudden, as men, go from not understanding women to actually getting them and being able to relate. And when we're fixers, right? Or men, so many women are like, I hate him, he always tries to fix shit. It's because we're built to do that, and it's wrong for a woman to condemn a man for trying to fix them, because that's how we love. Instead, they need to learn how to let us fix and to be open to it. But also as men, it's our responsibility to fix in the right way. And we do that by understanding first, which then leads to empathy, and that fulfills them and they feel heard and seen and loved, and then we can fix. And once we understand how to fix something and we can do it right, we solve the issue, and all of a sudden that level of certainty and safety they feel goes up, and then they're pouring into us more, and then we pour them into them more, and then we're moving upwards instead of downwards then. So it comes back to filling her core feminine needs, and then figuring out what are some personal needs of hers as well that need meeting. And that's usually just a conversation. Hey, like what's most important to you about this relationship, which if not present would cause you to feel unhappy. Or another way, without even having to ask, that I often tell men, because a lot of the men I work with in the beginning don't want to let their partner know they're doing this work, is I say, write down when you were happiest in the past. Write down when she was most in love with you, or when you felt most loved by her. And you'll figure out what you were doing back then, and 9 times out of 10, you're not still doing that.
Yeah, that's cool. Because lately I've had this feeling of, like, I feel like I see her as being ungrateful for like everything I do, because I see like I'm putting all this time and effort to build this for our family, and I feel like she kind of chucks that back in my face.
It makes you wrong for it.
Yeah, and then I feel bad, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I have these negative thoughts like, fuck you, like, do we break up? Are we meant to be together? Like,
because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Then you're trying to build wealth for your family, for her, and in the process of doing it, you've got her chopping you down, cutting you off the knees, affecting your ability to do the very thing that you want to do, which is for her. This is a common issue, and it's how do I explain this? I want to share it in a way that's going to benefit everyone else listening, because this is so common. where as men we're wanting to achieve and do more for our partner, but they're ungrateful. And that's a core masculine need. We need to feel appreciation and recognition from our feminine partner.
A man will go where he feels respected.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why men cheat. It's so easy. If a core masculine need of respect, which is another one, respect and recognition are not met, the moment a man goes out and sees another woman fawning over him and flirting with him and appreciating him for what he does and recognizes his gift and what he does at work, where they're typically in their element, and that's another unfair condition to a lot of the time, just to add, a lot of the time men at work, they cheat through relationships they develop at work or through other areas, and it's where men are seen at their best. It's when they're seen only for their public life, whereas your partner sees your public life, your private life, and your secret life.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was on tour with one of my clients that I mentioned to you before, and I was out filming in my element, doing my thing, and this chick came on to me, and it felt good to get that recognition and
100%.
her see what I'm doing, because I don't particularly get that from my partner. She goes, oh, he's just in the podcast studio, he's just filming content. Where she's like, oh, wow, this is awesome, like what you're doing, and taking interest, and then taking interest in me. I was like, this is cool.
And as men, when we're in our element doing our thing that we're passionate about, you exude a very different energy. You exude a lot of the core masculine traits. And when we embody them as men, we emit a different energy that women feel. A lot of people struggle with the woo-woo side of this, but the beauty of it is it's measurable by science now. They can measure an emotion, they can measure our field from 6 to 12 feet away from us. And if nothing else, to take the woo-woo side of it away, we hold ourselves very differently. Our heads up, we exude tributes of a more masculine man, which women are drawn to. So you're in your element doing your thing. And yeah, you get a woman that goes, wow, look at him go. He's happy, he's smiling, he's killing it. He's directing people too as well. So you look like you have this, well, you do, you have this status about you. And it's very appealing to women. It's what women are attracted to. And it's wrong to think otherwise and make them wrong for that too. The thing is, your partner doesn't get to see the side of you. But she does see the side of you where you're fucked after editing for 12 hours and doing a podcast, and you're like, honey, I just think, like, can we just hug tonight? And she's like, where's my flowing, strong, masculine, desirable guy that I don't see anymore? So that's, a lot of men destroy a lifetime of work or relationships because in a moment of weakness where their cup's empty and they aren't being recognized and respected, understandably, they have a woman come up and admire them, and instantly their cup gets filled up, even if it's just a little bit, because their cup's been so empty for so long. That little bit that woman pours into feels like water to a man that's been in the desert for 10 days. It's so soul nourishing, and it's so easy to then go cheat.
I had to fight that urge.
Yeah.
I had big urges.
I can relate. I was filming a wedding the other day because I've still got a lot of those jobs booked in, and 2 women came up and made it very obvious they were very interested. So it's a similar situation. And I'm very full, like my cup, I'm fulfilled by my partner. So even though my needs are met, that still felt amazing for me. And it takes, so I didn't even need to be in a moment of weakness for that temptation to be there for me to want to do it still. And the urge to do it was absolutely there. I love my partner to bits and would never cheat. But did I still want to? Yes. And that's an uncomfortable truth which I talk a lot about, that people need to adopt in their relationship to have a happy, healthy relationship long term. And it's that women often need a reason to cheat, men just need a location. And the reason men don't cheat isn't based on whether we love our partner or not. It's just based on the fact that we're wired to want to. So it comes back to having values and a North Star as to why we don't cheat. And you've got that. You've got a family, you've got a daughter, you know the risks of doing it. So yes, the urge and the nourishing energy that came from her was great. And the responsible thing to do as a man then is to go, thank you. I'm flattered, not interested though. I've got a partner, I'm very happy. Similar to what I said in my situation. And you walk away and take that energy that you just got and go reinvest it back in your relationship. Because the more you succeed too, and as you begin to progress, you will get more and more of this. And this is where men become unstuck, is when they begin to create some form of success in their life, that's when their loyalty is tested. So they say it's a woman's loyalty to a man is tested when he has nothing. His is tested to her when he has everything. So the more, imagine when you are killing it and you have time to go to the gym and you have staff working for you and you're directing a whole crew and there's all these women going, look at this guy, like bossing everyone around, killing it, smiling it, and they're all coming for you. That's when you're tested. So it comes down to really knowing what your needs are, making sure they're met in the relationship, and having conversations with your partner about, this is what I need and this is why. And not saying in a way that you must, but this is important. And if you don't, the relationship doesn't work. So it's very important that earlier on in a relationship you are to set foundations and rules, essentially. People don't like the word rules, but it's what they are. Call them standards, call them boundaries, whatever. They're fucking rules. If you break our agreement of fidelity, the relationship's over. That's a fucking rule. It's not a standard. It's not an expectation. It's not a value. It's black or white, do or don't. And once we get clear on them, we create that fence we spoke about earlier in the relationship to protect us from outside forces and for her to know where to go and not to go. And most men don't do that. And what happens, because we don't set boundaries, women go and push the limit until they find them. And often they've pushed too far or past the point where we go, shit, that was important to me and I didn't make it obvious, I didn't communicate that, and now she's crossed that line. So again, it falls back on the man as responsibility to lead. And when you lead healthily and properly, she will follow. It might take some time, but she will.
I'm curious because for me, when I got with my partner, we were 20. Yeah, 20. So we were young. I was a boy, right? And it hasn't been until since my daughter was born, really, that I kind of shifted more into a man. And
that's often major commitment then, because it's an irreversible commitment, and that's when boys go to men. Irreversible commitment.
And I feel like we've grown as different people because I'm not that little boy anymore. I've grown as a person in more confidence, my communication, everything like that, and I feel like she's kind of still stuck at where we were in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I found it hard because I am purpose driven and I want to build this empire and do this thing, but she doesn't have any of that. Like, she's not.
Let me ask you this. When you're rich, wealthy and prosperous, do you want her to have that, or would you rather that she can just do whatever she wants when she wants at home with the kids?
I wanted to be at home with the kids, but the thing with that is, I should be sharing this. So she went about 3 months of not working because she hated a job, and I said, hey, I can fund her. She can be at home, be a mom, everything like that. But then she was at home, but she had no purpose, no passion, and nothing was getting done at home. And I was like, after a hard day of work and everything like that, I come home and nothing's done. I'm like, what? Like, even more, like, you're so ungrateful. Like, I'm doing all this for you. You get to stay at home. Yeah. Can't even fold the clothes. Can't even, do these simple things. Yeah. Then complain about it. Yeah. That fucking hurt me heaps.
Yeah. And then because you're coming from a place of her, and part of respect is is supporting you from the back end. So a need we require in a relationship is to be supported, and that's how she could have supported you, and she hasn't. So you're coming to her about a problem that she's created that isn't necessarily from a loving place. Like, how hard is it to go to your partner when they haven't met your need and you have theirs, or at least you feel like you have, and then you've got to try and empathetically be like, honey, like, can you please? And like they don't usually come at you with love and acceptance. It's usually disagreement or pushback.
Because to them it feels like you're attacking them.
Yeah. So the thing I would say there is she's probably wasn't in a good place there. And, she's probably unaware of her own values at the moment.
Yeah, because she doesn't know what direction she wants to go in life. I know she's...
Is she more lost. Feminine in nature?
No.
More masculine in nature, would you say?
She's going to hate me say it, but we both know she wears a mask. She puts this tough person mask, but down deep, like, I know.
I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole, so I'm just going to speak assumptively here. Let's say that she grew up with unhealthy relationships with men, and she didn't have a healthy example of how a man should be, and she didn't have healthy boundaries set by men, and maybe the relationship she did have with masculinity in her life wasn't exactly supportive, directive. They didn't create structure for her. It was chaotic. To whatever degree she had an unhealthy relationship with the masculine, she would have taken that on to do the masculine side herself, to create safety and certainty for her. So women a lot nowadays are in their masculine because they can't rely on men to be masculine, because men have been made wrong for being masculine, because masculinity got abused for a long time by men. So now women have said, fuck giving you the control and relying on you and being dependent, I'm going to take this. And it's not a conscious decision, it's just unconsciously it happens. A woman, if she's unsafe, needs to take on that role. It's like my mother, she was a single mother, she became very masculine, and then she would end up with these guys that were feminine and weak and weird, and they'd have this just chaotic polarity, and they would create chaos, and it would run throughout the whole family. So I'm going to assume that if she's got some form of a mask on, there's a reason, and she needs a reason to take that mask off. And the only way you can give her a reason to take it off is through consistency and adopting, again, these core masculine traits. And you've done it. Most men have done it. But we're missing a few traits, even if it's just one or two, And it's each extra trait adds a significant amount more value and certainty and safety to us. And we show up exponentially better. Most of the traits we adopt as men work best in our career. We then miss the ones that are very significant in our relationship. Or we don't adapt those masculine traits or human needs from career and work and those skills into our relationship. So while we're great humans outside of a relationship, like every other area of our life could be great. The moment you get a relationship and that honeymoon phase ends, the first phase of the relationship ends and you click over into the power struggle phase, you are fucked. Because all your traumas come out, all their traumas come out. The infatuation from the honeymoon phase is not love, it's infatuation. It's oxytocin and serotonin that are being dumped into our system like this. It's literally being injected into us like a drug. And it's infatuation. And when that ends, we're left with what real love is, which is effort. And if we don't know how to show that effort, and we don't know what their needs are, and their traumas are getting triggered by us doing things, which happens, it's meant to happen like that in a relationship, then it becomes very hard for your woman to be feminine and loving and supporting of you as a man. We typically as men still show up and do our role in the business world, and we think we're providing safety and security by going out and attacking them with this shit. But the problem is, she has this unmet need and she'll test us or she'll challenge us, and then we'll react in an unhealthy way. And then they get, less secure, less safe. They don't have the variety. They're not getting significance from us anymore because it's same old, same old. So essentially we just end up in this downward spiral. And the only way to fix it, and it's a bitter pill to swallow for men, is to stop where you're at and take complete responsibility for everything and where you're at, and peel back and start again essentially and go, what the fuck am I missing here? And it often takes the form of talking to your partner and sitting down and having a conversation saying, look, I haven't been my best, neither of you, but I want to take responsibility for it because I recognize I haven't been giving you what you need. I am focused on work and I'm working so hard, not just for me, but for you and the family and for our future. But in doing that, I figured about now, and there's no future to have if I don't look after things now. And how you look after things now is, there's a lot of ways that we can talk about this, and feel free to direct it any way you want, but it's essentially showing up better as a man, and we usually have to do inner work to do that because we react wrong. Instead of responding, we react. So the moment she's upset or is triggered, we can't too then get triggered and start adding to it because it just becomes this fucking mess. We need to be able to be a rock in amongst her emotional storm. So she needs to be able to lose her shit, get upset and get irrational, because women by nature are more emotional and they feel first, then think, whereas we think, then feel. So it's our responsibility to stop and think and go, why is she upset here? And we need to assume certain beliefs as well, that they always have good intentions and that they do love us no matter what. And when there's a lack of love, it's just a lack of understanding. So if we have those three beliefs and go, what do I not understand here, or what's missing, and then show up and ask questions and get to the point where we understand, we can then give them what they need, they will settle, and we get to the truth of the matter, and we can actually meet their need. Once their needs are met, we can then ask for our needs to be met too, and we can give, and we fill each other's cup up instead of taking from it. Because right now you're probably both on empty. She doesn't feel fulfilled by you to the degree that she should, and you don't feel fulfilled by her as what you should. You don't even feel supported. You feel like you've actually got someone holding you back to a degree. And this would probably be a lot easier if you were single, and in fact it would.
I think to myself all the time, imagine how much bigger the business and everything would be if I was single.
Yeah, it would be bigger and better quicker, but it wouldn't be as fulfilling. And that's what Tony Robbins talks about, the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And you could separate and you could end the relationship and it would be better. It would create other issues, but you would get the relief you want after you adapted after 3 to 6 months because you've been with her for so long. I went through this. The issue is though, is that the problems you have in this relationship will very quickly manifest themselves again in the next relationship after the honeymoon phase is over, because there's still core fundamental issues there that need to be addressed. And the only reason that things are the way they are in the relationship now is because either something's missing or you are doing something wrong. Typically we're missing something as men, and it's a lot of us are people pleasers. We grow up in an environment and society where as men we're told masculinity is wrong, so we don't ask for our needs to be met, but we give and we give and we give. And then what we do give eventually isn't looked at as giving. They just think that's, you should be doing that. And when we don't feel appreciated for what we do give, and we're told we don't, and we're selfish, and a number of other things that women typically throw at the man, we end up going, what the fuck's the point? And we leave. And the issue is we repeat that in the next relationship and the next one. And it all comes back to getting down and doing inner work. and understanding these uncomfortable truths, which there's a number of them which people deny. One of the uncomfortable truths is that it has to be mission, man, woman, kids. I've had people say, no, it needs to be kids, then woman. And I'm like, that's bullshit, because if you don't look after the mother, who's the primary caregiver and nurturer of the children, how is she meant to look after them? It's your responsibility as a man to make sure the kids are refueled, the mother is nourished and has everything she needs to be the best nurturing mother that she can to the children. So there's a hierarchy to things, and there's a reason behind everything. And if we get the hierarchy wrong or the order wrong, it fucks it up completely. It's like putting the horse before the cart. Sorry, the cart before the horse.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's seen as misogynist to kind of think like that these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard as a man to figure out your place in this world and how to navigate relationships, because women have been taught, to be independent and to do everything themselves and not be in their feminine. And as we've just been speaking about, like my partner's, everything you spoke about, her upbringing and the mask, everything, 100% agree with that. And that's why I feel like she is in her masculine. And it's been a big struggle for me, because I'm trying to, obviously I know I've got to fix some shit up, but I'm trying to be in my masculine and allow her to drop that and step into her feminine side. But it's been a massive like back and forth battle, and I just feel like not getting anywhere. And I have the thoughts of, fuck, is this right? Are we meant to be together? Like 8 years, we've grown in different ways. Like we're different people, but at the same time, I'm like, love is deeper than just an emotion. It's something you have to work on.
Love is a verb. A lot of people think love is a noun. It's something you have. Absolutely wrong. It's a verb. Love is something you do.
You have to work on it.
You feel love when you do love. It's a delayed reaction too. You don't just get it. Because like I said, in the first stage of the relationship, when we think we love someone, we've fallen in love. You've fallen under the spell of drugs, of oxytocin and serotonin, because it's just how the biochemistry in our body works. We're wired to do that. And then everyone gets out of that phase. And then we end up in the power struggle where we don't feel the same love. And it's because we're not doing love. So to touch on that, your love isn't something that we have. It's something we do and then we experience after the act of doing love. Real love is effort. Relationships are fucking effort. They're not this handy, simple, easy thing that just comes in and you don't have to nourish in any way, shape or form. Every other area of life and everything in life that is good requires maintenance or effort or work of some sort. And relationships no different.
And a lot of people are, I feel like they're looking for reasons to leave instead of looking for reasons to stay.
Absolutely.
Especially in this day and age of dating apps and everything like that. It's like, oh, the grass could be greener on the other side. Why don't I just leave this relationship that I've already put time and energy into, but let's just see if it's better.
So here's the problem, right? So a lot of women talk about misogyny and they have no idea what misogyny is. Men don't know what fucking misogyny is. They think misogyny is saying do this. I absolutely would encourage telling your partner exactly what to do. It's not to say that they have to do it, but it's to tell them what you expect and what you want. And men are afraid to say, this is what I expect. Men are afraid to have a standard because, again, our generation, and probably a lot of generations before us, we've been raised to know what to give women and what they expect of us, but we've not been raised to expect anything from them. Like, what expectations do you have of your woman? What expectations were you told that women need to meet of yours when you were growing up? There was none. Like, I know at least in my household and every other man I've spoken to, it was always, you need to be kind to women, you need to love them, you need to look after them, you need to protect them, you need to, provide, you need to be the man of the house. It's all these things, but where is the saying of expect your woman to nourish you and keep a clean and tidy house? That way you come home to something that's recharging and uplifting to go out and attack the world and do better in business to bring more home. What's happened is, like, that was an old model. That was a very old model and it worked. That model was perfect and brilliant in my opinion, but the men back in the early to mid 1900s abused that model, because what happened is, in that case, the hierarchy was man, woman, kids, and the men would go out and work and earn all this money and bring it back home, and they had more than enough money to pay off the house, to feed the family, to go on vacations. But a lot of these men cheated, they abused their wives. I didn't know this, but speaking to my grandparents, it was common practice in the 1960s and 50s for men to still hit their women. It was just acceptable and the norm. And there was articles out about how it was becoming unfavorable and what's the word here? It was becoming frowned upon to beat your women past a certain time because it was noisy. So that's not that long ago. So we had the right model, but we had the wrong men. Men didn't have accountability. They didn't have other men keeping eyes on them. They didn't have a system on how to operate. They didn't even know what it was. They just had men with all this testosterone and all this power, and they abused it. And now we've gone the other way where women are like, we don't need men. But a lot of the women I'm speaking to are saying, I have my independence, but I want a man. I want a man who's going to come in and lead, who wants to love me, who wants to look after me. It's just I can't find them. Or when I do find a man, they very quickly want to abuse the power, or that, you know, they aren't who they say they are because they have this beautiful mask on. And then after the honeymoon phase ends, we see the private and secret life come out to play, and we see all the good and the bad. And on top of that, women have their traumas surface. So it's just, 9 times out of 10 a relationship has issues very soon into the relationship, and it means we need to do work. But a lot of the men got blamed for all this. They had all this power and they abused it. And now women don't want to give men the power, and men also don't know how to handle the power. The issue isn't whether we have power or not, it's about being able to harness it or not. So as a man, we've got to get comfortable with the idea of coming across misogynistic and just throw the idea away, because masculinity in its true form is healthy, and it's what we need in society. It's what built society to where it is now. We just need to not abuse it, but harness it. And how harnessing healthy masculinity looks is being able to say to your woman, I expect fidelity, for example. That's a standard and expectation we all have. But how many men actually express that in a relationship to their partner? Like, I would ask the question, is it misogynistic to say to your partner, do not cheat on me? Absolutely not. It's an expectation. If you do it, the relationship's gone. It's a value, it's black and white, and it's unkind and not loving, I would say, to not express that expectation. And I think it would be unkind and unfair to not express other expectations and values to your partner that are absolutely important to you. It's not misogynistic to say this relationship will end if you don't want to have children, because to me, I value children, I want a family, and if you don't, while I love you, we're not right for each other, we're not compatible. So we need to prioritize compatibility, not emotions in a relationship. And when we do that, we can come across as misogynistic because we're telling them, these are our standards. You either want me or you don't. If you have the same standards, you're a perfect match and you marry up. And it's not misogyny there, it's healthy communication. So communication and expressing expectations as men has been vilified and painted as misogyny and something wrong in relationships. And it's a big problem because it does seem like a fine line sometimes. And the difference between healthy communication as a man and misogyny is whether you make someone do it or not. I can never make my partner want to cook me dinner when I get home and want to have a clean home. But I can set that healthy expectation and say, hey, I value a tidy and clean home to come home to, but I don't expect it to be a one-sided thing. I want to go out and earn this income and do this for you and contribute to your personal needs in this way, like your partner like massages like mine does. And that's a way that I show love, through physical touch to her. And a way she can show love to me is wanting to cook me dinner and feed me and make snacks for me, which I really value and appreciate. And because I've communicated that and she understands it, she does it. Where it becomes a problem and misogynistic to say is when I expect things of her but don't meet any of her expectations. So it needs to become a healthy form of communication. We need to get crystal clear on what each other wants. And thankfully, the way God or nature has designed it, we don't typically want the same thing. We want different things and we are quite complementary. So you might want a clean and tidy home, and that might seem difficult for her now, but I could nearly guarantee there would be something which, if you've done more of, which would probably be a lot easier for you to do than it would be for you to clean the house. If you started meeting that need of hers in that way, which requires an uncomfortable conversation and be able to sit with her and discuss it, and you started fulfilling it, she would be better positioned to meet your needs in that way as well. It just requires you taking the lead first as the man.
I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about being together 8 years and we're kind of in this program, right? We've been stuck in our ways. How do we
get out of it?
Get out of it and set these boundaries and bring back the traditional family, because we are so stuck in these ways. And I know it's hard, but
I would say there's a few uncomfortable beliefs to accept first. And one is to not be afraid of how you're going to come across, because I've had certain women say that seems very misogynistic. I grew up around women. I've got exponentially more female friends than what I do male friends from growing up as a people pleaser most of my life. And I know what women really want. I've heard it, I've seen it, I've looked at their actions, and they want a man to be taking the lead and to be in charge and to make decisions for them. But they just don't want someone who's going to abuse the power. Women want to have fun and enjoy the journey and be able to trust the man's got shit and enjoy it. And when we prove that we can do that, they drop the guards down and take the mask off. One of the truths you've got to accept to be able to do that and live in alignment with that is to understand that all women want to be feminine. Not all of them do. Like, nothing is ever 100% true 100% of the time. It's like there is certainly universal truths, and this is what I would say you need to adopt as a universal truth. An example of a real universal truth is like racism. It's wrong to be racist. No one can disagree with that. It's universally just makes sense. I would say and encourage all men to adopt a belief that women want to be feminine. They want to be able to relax and have fun and support you and give to you and enjoy your company. They want to go have fun. They want to feel safe. If you adopt that belief and go, okay, she wants to be feminine. If she's not, there's something missing that she needs, or there's something I'm not doing, which if when I do, she'll lean into that more feminine side of herself more and she'll follow my lead. How you go from where you are now in a relationship where it's like it's 8 years, it's stagnant, it's rough, there's a lot's happened as well. Like, you've got all these emotions that are easily triggered in you within you now as well. The best way you can change it is either repetition or intensity. So you either need to sit down and make it a conscious agreement where you're going to do a weekly or fortnightly couple date, and before the date or after, perhaps, you're going to talk about certain needs. And there's a template which I'm building now, and I'll be offering this for free soon, and I'll talk more with you about it and I'll give it to you. You can sit down and discuss values for the relationship, which we need to have, our individual values that we appreciate and we would like met by a partner. And then there's preferences or needs as well. So there's things that we'd like our partner to do, but they don't have to do. An example can be like mental stimulation. I'm sure you get a lot from your podcast, so you don't need that need from your partner. You get it met elsewhere. But if it was a need left unmet, it's just another unmet need, which affects our relationship. So by having all of our needs met, we can show up healthy in our relationship. The more unmet needs, the less healthy we show up. So if you get clear on each other's needs and have these conversations on a regular enough basis and get clear on them and then get meeting them and you check in and say these 4 questions, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What do I need to start? What do I need to stop? Because what you do right, you do more of. What you do wrong, you do less of. And what you need to start and stop, you just start and stop. And if you do that over time and through repetition, instead of being like this, you'll eventually get to this healthy order where you're like a train track and you're the perfect distance apart and you have the perfect relationship and things operate how they're meant to and the train goes along that train track. But the moment you start deviating is when things get derailed. And it's about regularly checking in and having a commitment above all else to protect the relationship. And it involves saying, hey, I need to prioritize this. What else do you need? Which, if not met, would what else do you need in a relationship to keep you happy? Which if it wasn't met, you wouldn't be happy. And once you know that from her and you meet those needs, she'll be happy. And then on the odd occasion when you can meet the other little needs, such as, her personal preferences, like she might have a need for mental stimulation as well. You'll take her out on a date night, somewhere new to fill the need of variety. You'll, flatter her genuinely so she feels significant again. And then you'll talk about beautiful, deep stuff and about work and new clients you're getting, and you'll, meet that need of hers of mental stimulation, and all of a sudden you've met all these needs of hers and her cup's full again, and it'll be much easier for her to show up for you and give you what you need, provided that you remain consistent. Typically where men come unstuck here is they do this right, and then the woman starts giving them stuff, but they don't recognize them or appreciate them for it, or they typically abuse the power then because they go, things are feeling good and this is nice. And then they neglected their partner in some way, and then their partner feels punished because they've given without receiving, which is how most men feel. And then it creates this downward spiral. The difference is men, it's in our nature to want to try and fix, whereas in women, it's in their nature to more naturally withdraw. And again, that's another problem. Women will withdraw, we want to try and fix, they withdraw more, we fix, and the next thing you know, we're yelling at our partner saying, why won't you love me? Why aren't you giving me this? And it's why it seems so hard, because we don't have a model on how to operate a relationship. We have an instructional manual for so many things, but not a relationship. And that's what I'm building, is this template on how you first become aware that there's needs that need to be met. Like, we all know fidelity is a need, but we don't communicate it. And if it's not met, we leave. there's so many other needs which we need met, which if are left unmet, we would leave the relationship as well. Except it's death by 1,000 cuts. It takes us years or decades before we've had enough and we walk away. Or we never do, and we just live this shitty, half-baked relationship for the rest of our lives, never being truly happy because we didn't get what we want and they didn't get what they want.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, past experiences or past times where I have filled her cup up and she has been more open to have these deep conversations. But then of lately, because I haven't been filling her cup up, every time I try to have this conversation, she goes, I'm not in the mood, I don't want to talk about it. Like, she's just focused on other things. It's like very shut off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying. And I need to turn up more.
Piece of advice on how to approach it in the future. Most men. So here's the other thing too. It's not fucking easy.
No.
It's hard. The responsibility does fall on men, and we're already doing so much. And it's hard. It's fucking hard. It's so much easier to start again and go elsewhere. But the beauty in this belief I'm about to share is it gives you some form of reassurance, and it's that if you leave now, you're taking the expedient path. It's easy, and you will fuck it up again. It might be years later, so you get a few years of reprieve and joy, but you will inevitably do it again. And it's pain. Pain is a consistent thing in life. It's an inevitable thing. Just like change is, there's very few consistent things in life. Pain and change are two of them. You will always have pain. The beauty of pain is it's synonymous with growth. So if you want to grow, you need pain. If you need pain, or if you don't have pain, you don't have growth. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So when you have pain in a relationship, there's an opportunity to grow. And it's easy to leave the relationship. You should only ever really leave a relationship because of incompatibility issues. If you get to a point where you heal your shit and you get confident to show up and say, hey, honey, I actually value a really clean home, and I get that you haven't been doing it. You got to remember how you say it's important too. I've been expecting to do it without probably making sure you've got what you need to feel happy and healthy and fulfilled at home, like waiting for me and enjoying and appreciating what you have got. Let's have a conversation about it, because I need the home to be this way. It's important to me, and if it's not done that way, I'm not happy. So I want to make sure you've got what you need to want to give that for me. That's the difference between masculinity and misogyny. It's I need this, I want it, it's important to me. How do we get it? Not do it. Very, very big difference. Same as any business dealing. Like, we can sit down and have a discussion about a $100,000 deal. You're never going to sit there and be like, you have to do this. It's going to be like, I'm not giving you my $100,000 unless I get X, Y, Z met, and we negotiate and we figure it out. The difference with the relationship is there's way more emotions involved and all this other shit, and it's very easy for men to take the wrong turn or the wrong route and come across misogynistic. But back to where we were. How you approach conversations with your partner when you want to express a need or talk to them about something is typically we're ready, and when we're ready to go have the conversation, they're not. And how you do it is, I call it the safe space conversation. This a model where you create a safe space to have a conversation in. And how you do that is you say, hey, honey, this is a bit of an uncomfortable conversation I want to have, but an important one. It matters to me. Can we chat about it now, or do you need some time to get mentally ready for it and chat? We'll chat later about it. It's important. It needs to happen. I want to make sure you're in the right space to have it as well. We give them the opportunity, so we let them know there's something important, and then on top of that, you want to reassure them that it's going to be okay. Because the moment women, typically, especially 8 years in a relationship, hear that there's a tough conversation to come, that it usually means there's going to be anger, aggression, an argument. So once you can reassure them that it will remain safe, and they are certain and have that need fulfilled that you're going to be calm, you're not going to react. You can get angry, but not aggressive. It's okay to get emotional, but we can't direct it at them. Instead of saying, you this, it needs to be, I'm upset. Like, I'm just pissed off. I get it, but. And if we can meet them in that way and create a safe environment to have these tough conversations together, we can then actually have them instead of avoiding them. And as a result, the relationship can begin to repair and flourish again. But it requires us again as men showing up first and being willing to put away our emotions, to suppress the anger and not suppress, but harness it and direct it elsewhere, not at our partner. And be vulnerable, bring these things up. And the thing is too, you got to then know what to bring up, which is what I want to offer. It's like values and needs and wants and desires. And it's not easy. It's worth it, but it's not easy.
Yeah, the way I've approached it, coming back to the whole expectation of having a clean house. I was like, simply, I just put it straight there. I'm at work all day. I expect a clean house, and she seen as like me attacking her and shit like that. But you've really put it in great context of I was expecting this from her because I felt like by me going to work, I was actually giving to her, but really I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well, you are, but you aren't. Like it is giving to them, but
not
again,
on how they really want it.
yeah. And the reality is, would you still be doing it anyway if they weren't there? Yeah. They are. It's a secondary byproduct of what we do that they get to benefit from. So the idea is the woman's meant to benefit from us going to work. A lot of the time it's not seen as that though, and they don't appreciate it because women also aren't taught how to appreciate a man. Like men aren't taught what to expect from women growing up. A lot of women also aren't taught what men expect from them or how to fulfill a man. Like most women, if you chat to them, you go, what does a man want? They wouldn't know. They don't know that respect is of the utmost importance. If you have a partner, it doesn't matter how beautiful or gorgeous she is. If you're in public and she disrespects you in front of people or clients, you're done with her. You can't love that woman. There's no way. Or you might, but you'll be ashamed and you'll be a shell of yourself and you'll look like a bitch if you pander to her after she's disrespected you. So either way, it's a loss for you. So it's not a want, it's a need, it's a must. Women need to know what else we want. And a tidy, clean home, if it's, a fair exchange of you working more and them not, or you being the bigger breadwinner, it's a fair exchange. They just need to understand that, and that it's not a place of like expectation, but it's just reciprocal in nature and energy. It makes sense. It's unfair to expect you to go work 12-hour days to eventually provide financial independence and security in a relationship if they're not even going to clean the house for you. That's not misogyny. That's bullshit. Like, no man wants that. If we all got to design our ideal woman, we would all love for them to want to do that for us. And we get made wrong for having these standards that we want. But women are made okay for having all these standards. Like I want a guy that's 6'4", makes over $200,000 a year, does this and that. But the moment we have a standard, it's misogynistic. And it's what men have got to get comfortable with. It's not misogynistic. It's having standards and then living by those standards. Much like we do with our mission. If we don't live towards our mission and our purpose, we go wherever the wind takes us and we end up fucking somewhere down the line we're not happy with. Same as a relationship. If we don't have standards that we adhere to, the relationship 8 years down the line ends up somewhere we never wanted it to. And we're like, how the fuck did I get here? It's because you didn't have a very set direction and standards protecting the relationship, guiding it. And it's not misogynistic unless you're enforcing them. That's when it is. But if you set them, actually, no, I'll take that back. Enforcing them is the right thing to do. But it's if they don't want to adhere to them is when it becomes a problem. You need to make it very clear, these are what I expect and this is why it's important. And I'm not asking without giving. I want to know what's important to you. Because everything that I expect and want in this relationship is for me to be the best I can for you. And if I don't have a clean home to come home to, that does affect me. And I can't show up for you the way that I want. So like, these are what I want. What do you need to be happy to give me this? Because we have a compatible relationship that's reciprocal in nature. Whereas the moment if she doesn't want to give, that's a problem. And unfortunately, some relationships are in a position like that where women are so brainwashed and have such an unhealthy relationship with the masculine and have been told, women are the prize, that they will never want to give to their man in a way that's of service because they have this adverse reaction to want to serve their man because they're told it's wrong. Whereas the reality is it's the ultimate form of love to serve your man as it is we serve them.
You mentioned as a man, you don't want to be disrespected in public by your woman. How would you approach a situation where your woman may disrespect you and you get in the car after and you say, you're trying to set that boundary, do not just disrespect me in public again. How would you approach that? Because that may be a tough one because if there's women out there that are in their masculine or they think they're trying to be funny but they disrespect you, like how would you
have the conversation?
How would you have the conversation? How would you navigate that?
It's interesting because I'll get to it, but there's a formula. Be, do, have. When you're having a conversation, you're concentrating on the wrong piece. It's what do I do now? When you be the right person, circumstances like that would never happen. So instead of trying to do a technique, a process, something, which is a temporary Band-Aid, you need to go back to the root cause of the issue, which is why did she feel comfortable disrespecting you in the first place? Why did she think that was okay? Why didn't she know that's not okay? Why did she want to speak about you in that manner in front of people? These are all questions that need answering, which if asked and dived into, you'll come back to a reason. So typically the reason is we aren't being someone worthy of respect, or we haven't had healthy communication and boundaries set in place, which is, again, we're not being masculine enough to set structure in the relationship, which is very important. We need to provide structure. So it's the best thing to do is to go back to the root cause and show up in a certain way that is worthy of respect. Because a lot of men too probably aren't that worthy of respect, to be honest. Their partner will disrespect them in public the same way they would in private. They're not doing anything different to what they normally do. It's just showing up in a public manner because they just genuinely don't respect their partner. So first off is it's be worthy of respect. You should be respected regardless, yes, but if you aren't worthy of respect, that's the problem. So first off, make sure that you're not doing disrespectful shit. You're a man of your word, of integrity. You're doing the best you can all the time so that she's going to respect you. If then she's still doing it because of unhealed traumas or unhealthy relationship with men, or she just hasn't been educated on what your needs are and preferences are, then I would probably structure the conversation something like this. I would wait till we're in private and I'd say, honey, I need to chat to you about something really important to me, and we're having this conversation now. I would be firm with that, because if she's done something like that there and then, it needs to be addressed. I'd be like, we're not going to have a long conversation about this. We can later if you need more context, but I didn't appreciate how you were disrespectful there in front of my friends. If you have an issue with, say she joked about you being inconsistent, which again, that you should be consistent, but say if that was the joke and she disrespected you in that way, oh, you never do this, you're always lazy. The conversation would if you have a problem with that with me, I want to have a chat to you about it because I want to address it. If that's a thing for you where you've got to bring it up in public in front of other people and disrespect me, it's an issue for me too, and I want to fix it. But I won't tolerate having that sort of disrespect shown to me. I don't appreciate it. It doesn't work for us as a couple. It doesn't help progress me in career or life. It only works against me, and I don't appreciate that. You're meant to work for me. You're meant to give to me and want to lift me up, not pull me down. So please never do that again. If you feel that is an issue, we need to talk about it, because I'll fix that too. I want to take responsibility that you've got to a point where you felt you needed to do that, or that you could do that. It's not okay. So we'll chat later, but for now we're on the same page. If a man's in his masculine enough, she'll respond well to that. If a guy isn't normally, and a guy's dancing more in his feminine, she'll probably be like, who the hell do you think you are to speak to me like that? If that's the case, it needs to be a bit more gentle, but firm still, and say, this isn't okay with me. I would take responsibility if there's something to address there, and I'll work on it, but I can't have that, and I don't want it. Because another reason respect is so important to a man, and why it's an important need, is we're animals, essentially. We live and die by the sword, essentially. And a long time ago, we gave up the acceptable norm of, if we have a disagreement, we fight to the death, or we, pull out guns or whatever and shoot each other. That's how we dealt with things back in the day. Our ability to protect ourselves was our ability to fight or defend. We don't have that right nowadays in this society. Our ability to defend ourselves and fight and our modern day sword and shield is our reputation and our relationships. And if we have someone damaging them, they're damaging our ability to fight and defend for ourselves and to provide for ourselves. Your reputation is directly tied to your ability to make an income, to build your business. And if they're diminishing that, that's the equivalent to your woman blunting your sword back in the medieval days, or hiding it on you when you're about to get in a fight, or putting a hole in your armor. It's no different. And that's why it's so important that a woman needs to understand that man needs respect, and you need to respect them. But also, it's not to say to give a man respect that doesn't deserve it. If you're a woman and you're with a man that you are struggling to respect, first off, why are you with him? But secondly, if he has a lot of other good admirable traits, then maybe step up and be the woman that's going to nourish and make the king of a man, or bring the king out in him and say, honey, this is where you're faltering, and it's going to affect your ability to provide for me and the family, and I don't feel safe and secure. I need you to start showing up more and support the man and love him and give to him. There's so much a woman can do to make a man feel comfortable and confident in being better, but most of them work against them instead of for them to get the result they want from them, for their man.
Speaking more into respect, do women respect a man that's vulnerable, and how vulnerable do we go with a woman? I was having this conversation with my brother, and he's more so like my dad, very non-emotional, and he's like, as a man you need to be strong and provide and everything like that. You shouldn't be like as vulnerable with a woman. So I'm curious, like, how much do you show? How vulnerable do you go with a woman? Do they respect it, or do they see you as a bitch?
The answer is yes and no. Yes, they do see you as a bitch, but also they will love and respect you exponentially more if you do it in the right way. Being vulnerable and sharing your emotions it's not what men think it is. It's not sitting down saying, I feel this, I feel that. Being vulnerable is a necessity as a man. We need to be able to communicate. And if you can't clearly communicate your emotions and simply say, I feel X and I don't appreciate this, then as a man, you're incomplete and you're not showing up to the relationship in a healthy way. You need to be able to communicate and express your feelings and emotions to your partner. And I think it's unfair to them if you don't, because they're left wondering what your expectations and standards are and how you're feeling. And then they can't act in accordance with that or to that, like we would with our partner. So many men sit there and be like, what's wrong? And when their partner says nothing, the man will get pissed off and they go, why don't you just tell me? And the men then do their own version of that, where they just won't communicate at all and tell them how they're feeling. The woman may not ask, but the man also never fills them in. So yes, you should communicate and be vulnerable, but it's how men are vulnerable is where they get it wrong. Women hate weakness. They absolutely hate weakness. And there's something sexy about a man making something look effortless. And if we struggle to communicate, and when we do, it's in a whimpering, shitty, pathetic way where we're basically saying, I'm upset and I don't like it when you do this, they're going to struggle to respect us, because we don't even have respect for ourselves in those moments. Because typically we're like, why are we so emotional? And we can't clearly articulate what's wrong and why and how to do something about it in a meaningful way. So a lot of men come across weak when they are vulnerable with their partner. And what happens is, and I'm sure you can probably agree with this, every man I've ever spoken to has, is when we're vulnerable and telling them about our feelings or something we don't like, next argument we're in with them, they weaponize that against us and make us wrong for ever opening up and telling them our insecurities or our vulnerabilities, right? I'm sure you've experienced that. 100% of men have said yes to that so far. Then on the odd occasion that we do communicate, we're vulnerable and we're made wrong for it like that and punished for it, why would we ever do it again, right? So the issue there is not what we've done, it's how we've done it. And it's back to that formula we do have. We've done something and we've done it wrong. We need to be a certain way so that way the do is automatic and it's just done right. It's like if you want water out of the ocean, or water's wet is an example I'll use. Like, water doesn't have to try and do something to be wet, it just is because it is water. Grass just grows, it doesn't try to grow, it just does it because that's what it does. As men, if we're masculine and healthy and have our shit together, we do things in a way that just gets the result that we want. We have the outcome and we do have process. So a lot of people focus on what to do. You've got to be someone different. You can't communicate and use some little tactic to communicate, that doesn't look weak. You've got to be strong about it. And funnily enough, I say not to have a do process or a technique. There is a process I teach men on how to communicate authentically and in a way that doesn't make them look weak with their partner. It's a way to be vulnerable in the right way with women.
That's a big thing I've struggled with.
Yeah.
When you said, when men can't communicate effectively and they come across as, whimpering and not really, being effective with the communication, not being kind of stern on how they feel and being able to articulate it, that's me. And then I can see it in my partner's eyes, she doesn't take me serious. So I'm like, and then that hurts me because I'm expressing my feelings, but you don't take me serious. So it's like, why am I even bothering?
And then you add that on top of the fact that you were already talking to her about something that you don't feel appreciated for, and then she's making you wrong for opening up. And then it's like, as men, we genuinely are chopped off at the knees at that point, and we do feel weak and vulnerable, and like our partner doesn't love us, and we're like left going, where do we go from here? There's two solutions to this. One, you need to go to other men about certain issues, not your woman. Certain issues that we as men experience are not meant for the ears of women. Our great-grandfathers used to go to other men about their issues. They had men to speak to. They were typically with other men all day, and they would talk about their issues, and they'd get solutions. Even back then, I'd say the model was right. They had other men to go to. They had men's circles, but it was usually at pubs or it was at work, and they weren't spent constructively giving each other criticism and showing up for one another saying, I think you're wrong here, brother, that you're saying she's doing this. I think maybe you're not doing this. That's why she's doing it. They wouldn't hold each other accountable. So they had the right model of having other men to go to, but they didn't do it in the right way. So there's certain things we should never go to our partner about in the first place. business issues, if your partner's not a business mogul and isn't an entrepreneur, she probably doesn't give a fuck.
No, she doesn't care about anything I do. And see, that hurts me because I think that's just been an ego thing. It's like, I'm putting so much energy into this and you don't really take any notice of what I do. So then it felt like a lack of respect or appreciation. But now what you've just said is like they don't care. Like they want you to be the man of the relationship. They don't care about the business, you know?
This is a personal need, and a lot of men, where they go wrong is and women too, we have personal needs that we expect our partner to meet. And the reason we typically expect them to meet that need is because, coming back to the table analogy, we only have one or two legs of the table, one or two needs being met by them. And typically that's intimacy, so sex, which usually becomes stagnant in a relationship long term, and one or two other things if we're lucky. So typically that's an easy low-hanging fruit. Communicate with me about work, and let's have those conversations, and we can connect and bond over that. But women don't want to a lot of the time. They want to know if you're doing well, and they want to know if you're happy and if you're passionate, but they don't care about the ins and outs and the details of the business. And when they don't care about that, we feel an unmet need. The thing is we're going to the wrong place about the right thing. We need to have those conversations, and as men, we need that outlet, and it's meant for the ears of other men. And a lot of men aren't taught that because, again, what men's circle did you grow up in? What other men did you have around you other than your father growing up that set healthy expectations and standards on how to be a man? We all grew up without that. So the first thing is know what to go to your partner with. Don't go to her with things that are scary. So for a lot of men who are on a business adventure, you or myself, we will have moments where we'll lose clients, or a deal that we had got cut in half because some department in the company decided they didn't need that anymore. And financially, we might get rocked and go, oh my God, these projections I had don't look as good now. And financially, we're somewhat not looking great. And if we go to our partner about these about these concerns, it rocks the foundations of her core feminine needs, which is safety and security. So if you go to her because you're vulnerable and need help about something that's going to make her feel vulnerable, you can't meet each other's needs there. You instead need to go to other men about it who are going to help you and can relate to you because they've been through it too and they understand it. All she understands is you're unable to provide now. And though she might be empathetic and loving, and I think women should be in that situation, it's in their nature to feel scared.
It causes stress, and then there's just more tension in the relationship. And
it's the equivalent to holding a scorpion in your hand and not expecting it to sting you. If you go to your partner with financial stresses, they get stressed, and they're then impacted about you in their ability to be able to fill you up and keep you full. So, and I'm a big believer in communication and honesty, right? I don't think don't tell them about it. I think it's how you tell them about it is what matters. So as a man, if there's a stress such as that, you want to communicate to your partner, just don't hide from her that something's wrong. She's going to be able to tell something's wrong with you. Her intuition's not stupid. Maybe go to her if you don't want to talk about it, but you know she'll ask, allow her to ask. Or if you're not able to show up in a way that you think she will, cause her to ask questions, just say, hey, honey, just want to let you know it's been a rough day or week at work, and there's a lot happening over the next couple of weeks, and it's just got me a bit stressed right now. I'm good, but I'm also not at the moment. I'm dealing with it. I just need you to support me and do your thing. I'm sorry in advance if I don't show up the same way with the same energy over the next couple of days or right now. Just wanted to let you know that's why, so you don't think it's anything else. If you want to support me or help me through it, I'd appreciate it. How you can do that is by just helping more, around the house, or more affection. If you can just help me relax, give me a massage tonight, ask, communicate. That's how you would communicate it. You wouldn't sit down there and then get into the details of it. You go to other men about that. And even my partner was a bit iffy about this in the beginning, but after she's seen some real life examples between us, she very much got it, went, wow. And it's beautiful because you can go away with an issue and let her know, I'm talking to other men about it. I've got my friend, for me, Jackson, that I typically go to about issues. And she knows him because I've picked wise with my close friends. She knows I'm going to wise counsel, someone who's got my best interests at heart, someone who has complete perspective and is capable of being able to help as well. So she knows I'm doing a very powerful, smart, wise decision and going to the right places about the problems. And she also knows how she can help me as well. So she's better equipped than most other women are who actually know the detail of the problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's one way to handle it. The next thing is when we go a level deeper and there is actually things that you do need to go to her about that are sensitive topics. A real example might be feeling like there's not enough intimacy and love from her in the relationship, for example, which again, a lot of men experience over a long enough period of time. A conversation piece there that most men have is, hey, we're not having enough sex and I don't feel like you're loving me as much. What's wrong? Like, they go to them so weak and fucking pathetic about it. And I know this because I've done it.
That's me too.
We're not taught how to do it. We don't have an instruction manual again. There is a way to do it where we fill them in, inform them, and activate their more innate feminine needs to want to love and give to us and serve us. How we do it is, it's actually really simple. Get rid of the word I feel and replace it with, it's important to me that. I would really appreciate it if you would. Or it matters a lot that we. Don't, instead of going and saying like, I feel like, we're not as connected and you're not loving me as much, which just, don't get me wrong, it's communication and it's something, but it doesn't build connection. It doesn't give them anything to work with. They can't fix that. They just hear problem. Whereas if you say, hey honey, I'm contradicting myself here, I'm using the word feel, but you'll get the mechanics of it. I've been feeling as though we're not as connected lately, or I feel as though, or like I've seen, you've been a bit off with me lately, and I'm wondering, have I done something? Because it's important to me that, as a couple, like, I value connection and I value intimacy between us, and I've been so busy at work lately and I just don't feel like I've been getting that. So I feel can be used, but it can't just be, I feel upset, I feel like we're not having sex. It's got to be matched with logic and reason and empathy. The delivery matters, especially when you consider the fact that communication is 93% nonverbal. Only 7% of communication is words. The other 93% of it is physiology and tonality. So we show up going, hey honey, we're not having sex, and we're agitated and shitty in our voice, versus calm and relaxed and present and being like, hey honey, it's come to my attention that, we're not connecting as much as we used to. And that's been bothering me. And I know there's reasons, and I've got kids, I've been busy at work, but I just want to sit down and make sure we reprioritize intimacy and time between us again. Because I think if we keep doing this for long enough, we're going to fall out of love. And I love you too much to let that happen. So if we communicate it in a way that's showing up with some consistency, and you can even start it with the safe space conversation that we spoke about earlier. We can say, hey, I've got a bit of a uncomfortable conversation just about us. It's nothing bad, just to reassure you. It's something that's important to me, and I want to bring it up because I don't want it to be an issue later on. And we say, do you want to have a chat now? Or do you want to maybe have a cup of tea and dinner, and when we're, unwinding later, we'll chat then? And they'll typically say, yeah, let's do it later. And you sit down and say, hey, I really appreciate how we connect. We haven't been doing it as much lately. And it's important to me we keep doing it. What's going on? Am I not meeting a need? Am I not showing up in a way that you need? Am I, what is it? And just asking in a loving and empathetic way, instead of, I feel upset. I feel like we're not having sex. What the fuck do you do with that? It's so hard for a woman, first of all, to be triggered and hurt, because they're going to feel straight away like they're to blame, or that there's something's wrong. And then fears kick in for them. Is he going to leave me? Does he not love me anymore? What does this mean? It just raises all these questions. Whereas if we provide structure for a woman, which is a core masculine trait they need us to live out and provide for them, is structure. If we provide structure and explain things in a healthy, effective way, then they can do something with it, and they'll want to do something with it. We've just got to create the environment for that. And again, if we're not getting that from a partner, typically it's our fault.
When we speak about intimacy, and I want to speak into precisely sex, as a man, I believe a healthy relationship is going to have a good sex life.
Absolutely.
And for me personally, sex is very important to me, and that's how I connect, physical touch. Yet, I guess sex has been, I wouldn't say demonized, but it's like, all men want is sex. They just want sex. And then when you ask a woman for sex, it's like, oh, fuck off. Or they use it against you to do things. You know what I mean? How do we bring that healthy sex life back into a relationship?
This is presuming there was a healthy sex life to begin with, yeah?
I don't know, because it was like the honeymoon sex, you know? You just fucking like rabbits.
Yeah. So provided that was there, great. Because some men have a really unhealthy relationship with sex, and how we show up in sex says a lot as well. Because a lot of men, there's two extremes I've found. A lot of women that I've spoken to have said some men come really quick, and they're not really great givers in bed, and it's a shit 5 to 10 minutes for them. And then there's the other extreme, which is what I used to be, and I was a pleaser. It was important to me that the woman walked away having orgasmed, and if she didn't, I felt like I failed, or I felt like it was shit. So I wouldn't necessarily say over please, but I would go out of my way to really give and give, and I didn't necessarily care about myself. And both traits really tell you a lot about how to deal with the sex life side of things later on in the relationship. Thankfully, both ultimately come back to us as men being comfortable with ourselves and knowing what we want and being able to ask for what we want. So you said a lot of it's common to hear all men want is sex.
Yeah.
And if it is, I typically say like yes.
It is, that's what I mean. But it's seen as like a bad thing now.
It's seen as a bad thing, I think, because it's not done in the reciprocal way. I think men have allowed this belief to be perpetuated that women don't want sex as much as men, and they do. If anything, women want it more. They don't want it even less than men. It's just typically the pursuers, and women are the gatekeepers of sex. We will typically pursue it more often, and it's women who decide whether they give it or not. We've both been in positions, as you've mentioned, where we've been pursued. It does happen, and that's because women want it as well, especially when the prerequisites, or probably a better way to say is once there's certain things that women need in order to want to have sex with a man. Certain needs that need to be met, certain external factors that they need to see and feel for a switch to be flicked for them to go, oh wow, I want to have sex now. And when they do, they want it just as much, if not more, as men than men. Sorry. So to fix it is to first off, I think, be and understand the truth, and it's that women do want sex as much as us. And if they don't, there's something wrong on a need not being met that makes them want to have it, because it's healthy for us to want to have sex. I know so many relationships where women said, I just don't like sex as much in a relationship, and then after they became single, they very much were having a healthy sex life again, and they wanted it. So it comes back to a needs thing. Do we feel safe, significant, respected, loved, admired, adored by a partner? If not, we got to look at our private and secret life, because typically a lot of men's reference point with sex is when they're single or early on in relationships, and all a woman has to go off of us at that point is our public life. So they've seen the best of us. They've seen our Instagram reels. They've seen our highlight reel, essentially, of life. And it's not until when a woman sees more of our secret and private life and understand the good and the bad that sex typically changes. And the reason it changes is because this respect and pedestal they had us on is very much diminished, because they go, oh, he's not actually as consistent, or he's not as confident as I thought he was. He doesn't exude that same energy as I've seen him do. For example, a lot of relationships that men I've spoken to in relationships, they've said their sex life died off, and the reason it was so good and for so long too, like past the normal window of what a relationship would have with really good sex, they had an extended really good sex life, and it's because their partner would come to their work often. One client was I'll just be careful what I say here, they were a doctor, essentially, and their partner would often come to the practice and see them in their element. They've seen a lot of other women respecting him and admiring him, and they get to see him doing his thing, and that allowed her to maintain a particular view on him. And then over time, when things changed and the business changed, she didn't go in as much, so she didn't see him in his element as often. She didn't see him doing well. She didn't see him as the consistent, powerful man that he was at work. She only seen him at home when he said, oh, I should go to the gym, and wouldn't. So she started seeing all these little incongruencies and things that couldn't help but make her feel different about him. So I'm a big believer in that to have a healthy sex life, we need to fulfill a woman's core feminine needs, and to the extent that we're not is to the same extent they won't want to have sex with us. If we shop consistent, if we look after ourselves, if we're doing good at work, we're making them feel significant, safe, secure, allowing them to contribute to our life, there's this flow of energy in the relationship, it's not dammed up anymore. It's actually allowed to flow, and it has movement then. And with that comes the desire to want to connect and have sex and be intimate with our partner. There's this side of it as well. Men become very boyish when they get comfortable with their partners. I've very much been a victim of this, and to be honest, I still have to be mindful of this at times in my relationship now, because my partner is very animated with her speech at times, and she'll get very fluffy and cartoon-like and animated. And it's very easy for a man to want to pitch their voice and get almost girlish in their persona and play with them, right? I've done this in past relationships, and it's easy to just be less than a masculine man in the relationship at certain moments. And if we do that too often, we essentially become like a play toy or a child or childlike in their eyes. And I would advise a lot of men to not certainly have fun with your partner, but just be careful with how you interact and become with her behind closed doors. Because if you start, like I've seen women do it, they'll speak in a really cute, weird voice to their partner, and then the guy does it back to them. And I don't mean to shame it. And if you still have a healthy sex life and can do that, good on you. But I fucking guarantee that most men that do that shit do not have a healthy sex life. And the moment a man walks in who's fit, healthy, strong in their element and grounded and fucking acts, to the equivalent of James Bond with that masculine, more stoic energy, she will be attracted to him. Her energy will concentrate on him as opposed to a partner, because her feminine innate traits don't want a fucking teddy bear. They want a warrior with their chest out who's proud and confident and can protect her. It's not a comfortable truth, and it's not 100% true, but it's certainly 99% of the way there.
And the reality of a lot of relationships these days is, a man will want sex, ask for sex, doesn't get sex, goes over to his phone or laptop, porn.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest here, I've struggled with addiction to pornography, as probably most men have, yet it's just not spoken about enough, where I feel like I'm not receiving that love from the partner that I'm with. So I'll just resort to sex, and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then there's no sex life anyway. Well, when you do have sex, it's not great, because it does have psychological effects on everything that you do. How do we combat that? Because porn plays a massive role in relationships. Yep. Unfortunately, these days, it is a big addiction.
100%. Porn is interesting because it simulates sex in our head. So our brains typically don't know the difference between reality and imagination. There certainly is some distinguishment between them, but it's the same reason we can go to a horror movie full knowing it's faked, it's been directed, actors have been told to do certain things, but when the horror moment happens in the movie, we still get scared. So it's rewarding ourselves for behaviors that we've never done. It's the same as drugs. Look, I'm not against drugs. I'm certainly am against addiction. But if people recreationally take drugs here and there to have more fun at a party, to amplify what they're doing, not as an escape, but as an amplification, I'm like, you do you. It's brilliant. But if you have a miserable life and you're not doing things to progress and become better as a man, and then you are going and taking drugs regularly to feel good, you are stealing happiness and stealing benefits that you do not deserve and that you should never have access to in the first place. It's the same as porn. If you aren't able to go out and get sex and affection and love from a woman, then giving yourself porn is a cheat, and it's getting benefits that you're not deserving of. And it's a very harsh way of putting it. And I can certainly relate, because, I was bad with porn from ages of like 13 up to probably 18, 19. And it was at that point when I entered the personal development space and I started going shit, and I learned about semen retention and went to an extreme with that I discovered that I shouldn't do it too often. And I've certainly done it from time to time, but I've also gone to an extreme where over the last probably 3 years, I can comfortably and vulnerably say I've watched it probably less than 10 times. And it's an issue. It's a cheat code. It's getting access to things that we shouldn't have access to. And it affects our ability to show up in a relationship, because we're escaping from the pain and the work that we need to do in order to get what we want. So if we want intimacy and sex from our partner, and they don't want to have it, there's a reason. A healthy relationship has healthy sex. And if we're not having healthy sex, we don't have a healthy relationship. So if we're not getting it, we need to go, what do I need to do in order to make her want to have sex with me? And I say make as in to get things how they're meant to be. That's how it's meant to be. Water's meant to be wet, grass is meant to grow, trees are meant to be trees. Healthy relationships are meant to have sex. So if we just escape to porn, we're avoiding the work that needs to be done, and we're avoiding the pain of doing that work. And inevitably, as I said earlier, pain is a constant, same as change. We always have pain in life. And if we don't experience the pain now and face it now by doing what we have to do, it shows up in other ways and much worse later down the line. So porn is essentially a Band-Aid. Don't get me wrong, it does provide temporary relief. We change our hormonal structure at the time when having our orgasm, and it's a great temporary relief. And it's okay, I guess, done in moderation and out of, like if you genuinely have a good sex life and it's 4 weeks that your partner's away because of work and you're like, fuck, whatever, do your thing. But it's when it's a crutch and when it's an escape or an excuse to give yourself benefits that you, again, aren't worthy of at the moment because you couldn't achieve with your partner. So porn's a problem, and I think if men are turning towards it, there's a reason, and I think we need to be empathetic with ourselves because it's no different to like a phone addiction, or it's no different to any addiction. And it doesn't even have to be an addiction to be a problem. If we're doing it once or twice a week, like that's a lot. And if you can't go, I'd say, more than 2 months without doing it, that's when I would begin to encourage people to look at it as an addiction. If there's urges where you want to compromise your life or intimacy with your partner to go do that instead, that's a problem. And if it's present, I'd say, what are you avoiding, and what work is there that needs to be done which would allow you to have a better intimate connection with your partner, which is easier said than done because that could be a fucking whole kettle of fish. Like that could be a lot. It's not a simple, I just need to go fix this one thing. There's probably a lot that needs to be fixed, which is why porn's probably so prevalent, because look how fucked up relationships are nowadays. Porn's an easy fix, and it's, to be honest, quite an appealing one considering how much work it would take to not only overcome your stuff but your partner's stuff, and then the societal bullshit put on men about misogyny and having expectations and standards, whereas women are encouraged to have expectations and standards. It's tough, and it makes sense why it's such a prevalent thing for men.
This conversation sums up how tough relationships are, but at the same time, they're worth it. If you're willing to put in the work, they are worth it. Because speaking about me, it's all good if I build this empire, it's all good if you build this empire that you're building, but if you don't have a loving relationship with you, it's like standing on top of the mountain looking at the world and just no one's next to you. Yep. So what's the point then? So, man, there's a lot to take out of this episode, and I really appreciate it. If there's any men listening out there and they want to work with you or they want to contact you, how can they best do that?
First off, I appreciate the conversation as well. It's been insightful, and I appreciate your vulnerability so we could touch a bit deeper on things as well. My Instagram and Facebook handle is Clayton Harrop, and I'll be on YouTube soon. And if people want to work with me, there's a link that they can book in my bio to have a chat with me. I do a one-off free session with men to help give them an idea of where they're at and what needs to happen, because it's important to know where we are and then where we want to go. And I help people as much as I can in that 45 minutes. And if they want to work with me after that, that's the opportunity to do it. But the idea isn't to sell people on a program. It's the idea is to give people help and genuine, actionable advice unique to their circumstances and where they're at in their relationship. And ideally a map to walk away with and what to do. The problem is a lot of men don't know how to do it and they need help doing it. And that's when my program steps in if they want to work one-on-one with me. It's just a matter of booking in and having a chat, and we talk about what that looks like together. Awesome.
I'll put all your stuff in the description. We have a closing tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. So the question for you is, when was the last time you did something good out of the kindness of your heart?
Something comes to mind, but there's benefit to it. I'd say the last time I'd done something good out of the kindness of my heart was when I decided to start working with women online. My whole business adventure and journey is working with men to help them fix themselves in order to fix the relationship, and ideally show up for their woman in a way that they want them to. And I didn't want to work with women because it's a bit difficult at times. Men are more prone to want to do the work when they're at the point where they want to do the work. But I had a number of women reaching out, and I just thought, no, but here's some advice through text. And one woman was struggling, and I just thought, I want to help her. Let's just see what I can do in the hour call, and 45-minute call, and it ended up being 2 hours. And in that time, I wanted to help and serve her as best I can, because I could see she'd been done wrong by. She had a man she was married to in a car accident get out of the car after it had flipped and fuel was leaking out, get out of the car and run away and leave her in it. And that was one example of how she was just not loved and protected and taken care of by this guy. And I could see that she had a lot of self-worth issues there in order to stay with someone like that. Because as a woman, like, that's, if your man's willing to let you die, why would you stay with them? For so many women, that's a reason they'll leave or they'll fight and make issues in a relationship because they don't feel safe. But she stayed anyway and accepted that. And I could see I didn't want her to have to suffer. And I think for me, it was selfless, but it was also really selfish in that I felt was really full and loved and appreciated and just, I guess, connected with God, because in that moment I just wanted to help her and give and make sure that she had everything she could to understand that she deserves more from that and what to expect from men, and that it's okay to expect that from men. And I'd say that was probably the most recent thing. It felt incredible being of service to someone without expectation and just wanting to do nothing but give and set them up to have the best life they could possibly have and relationship.
Clayton, thank you so much, bro. Appreciate it, man.
Absolute
It's been
pleasure.
awesome.